Welcome in, everyone. We're going a little bit early tonight. It is Thursday, October 7th, 2021. I am your host, Mark Reel, and welcome to State of the Family Courts. I am coming to you live from Orlando. I'm currently at the American Bar Association Family Law Conference. I was slated to have a guest on tonight, but we made a last-second audible after I sat through some panels this morning, and I thought that I guess I could provide a little bit more perspective about what's going on and what's going through some attorneys' heads when it comes to family court. Over the last 24 hours, I've had the chance to mingle and be around attorneys really from all over the country, from Alaska to Florida to California to New York, and everywhere in between. And I've had some interesting takeaways. And then we'll wrap this episode up. We will take some Q&A at the end, so I will answer probably 7-10 questions at the end here. So drop your questions in the comments on YouTube or Facebook, and I will get to them. Before we get started here, I'm going to start the episodes off here really every single week. We've made a push into creating change through all avenues here at the Fathers' Rights Movement, and the next frontier is helping to fund litigation. So if you're willing, if you're able to, we have a 1.2 million person reach on social media. If you go to www.tfrm.org/donate, you can actually set up a reoccurring donation. Our goal, if we got every single person to donate just $1, that would be $1.2 million that we could use to effectuate change through all avenues, whether it be through litigation, whether it be through legislation, or anything else that comes up. So I'll go ahead and today's been a little bit of a whirlwind day. So anybody that's watched the show knows that I think that change needs to be created through three avenues. Number one, first and foremost, dads need to be successful in family court right now. The more dads that are getting more custody, the more that we have to go to legislators to say, hey, this is the change that needs to occur. Number two is that legislation piece, which is where I actually started my morning this morning. And number three is the litigation piece that I talked about, that the Fathers' Rights Movement is jumping in and hoping to back and support strategically in terms of creating change. So as of this morning, I was on a call with a high-ranking state senator, and we had a very good call. And based on the information I was told by a few people, we're now in 2022 going to have 12 states that are at least 12 states as of today that are going to have 50-50 equal and shared parenting bills that are going to get submitted, that are going to at least begin the legislative process this year. So that snowball that started last year, where we had 6 states create change, Arkansas ultimately get across the finish line, that snowball is getting larger and rolling downhill. And so that's the positive. But then I stepped across the hall out of the little conference room I was in into the ABA sessions, and it was the general session. And I want to give you guys perspective from the inside as to what's going through attorneys' minds and what's going through the most powerful organization when it comes to the legal profession. Really everything. I'll tell you this, there has not been a single word uttered by leadership of the family law section about anything equal and shared parenting. And the conversations I've been able to have one-on-one or in small groups with attorneys, they're relatively receptive of it. But as a whole, the biggest concern in the big general session this morning was how the legal profession will look financially for the individuals in it in the coming years, whether it be, for example, the state of Arizona. They have something where now you don't have to be a lawyer to own a law firm. And there are a lot of other states, California, Utah, there's a few others that are actually trying to push through legislation where you won't have to be an attorney to own a law firm. What's that going to do? A lot of attorneys are scared that's going to bring big business, that's going to bring venture capital, and that's going to bring people seeking profit. Probably not the best thing for family law, given that it is the cash cow that it is, and given that family law isn't the big settlements, it isn't things like that. It's billable hours. It's just constantly churning out those billable hours. So that was a big concern of a lot of attorneys today, was the future of the legal profession and what it looks like financially. Probably, though, the most concerning is after the general session, I got the opportunity to sit in on a domestic violence panel. And this was something that I can say I left very, very disappointed. So the domestic violence panel was essentially prefaced on the premise that parental alienation doesn't really exist, or it's a tool that's simply used by individuals who perpetuate domestic violence, and that it's a tool that is used to essentially attack the mother who's trying to, quote unquote, protect their child. So that's something that it was a little bit kind of concerning. I will say the main presenter in that was an individual who, if you go look, the National Parents Organization just put out an article where I think there's 17 different organizations that are disputing the validity of this individual's research. But essentially their research boils down to alleging parental alienation is a father's best tool in terms of getting more custody. Their research was extremely limited. We all know that family law cases are sealed. You can't go collect big swaths of data, but their research and their data showed that if a man alleged parental alienation, it essentially was the trump card to a woman alleging domestic violence. So I think a lot of us know, and a lot of us have experienced, that that's not necessarily the case. That's very judge dependent. But there were a lot of attorneys that were thumping their fist on the desk saying, yes, we have judges that believe there's too much parental alienation. And so that goes back to, I think one of the things here at TFRM we push to a great extent is the not being the angry dad, not pounding our fist in passionate speeches, yelling at people to try to get what we want, because that plays into these attorneys' feelings. And I mean, this panel was premised on men perpetuate domestic violence against women and children, and then when things don't go their way in court, they allege domestic violence. So that's something that we need to be cognizant of as we push forward with this legislation, as we change the narrative in regards to what family court should look like. And I'll tell you, the second part of this panel was equally as concerning. It was an individual who makes their living as a child's attorney. And I think everyone that watches knows I'm not a big fan of third parties getting involved. I don't think in most cases, there's some cases where it's necessary, but in most cases, these individuals have just created a living off of parents being ordered to pay them thousands of dollars. And this woman stood up there, she's from the state of North Carolina, stood up there and talked about how great child attorneys were and how they were necessary and kids' voices needed to be heard. And the entire time I'm sitting there thinking, like, this woman just gets a blank check or a blank bill that she just gets to send the parents. That's how she makes her living, is that the court orders parents to have to pay for that. And we have to get away from that pay-to-play that true pay-to-play system where we don't have a justice system where the right things occur. We have a legal system where you have to pay to participate, and sometimes you're mandated to pay. So that's some of the things. It was really shocking and eye-opening. And we see this in a lot of states, Texas, West Virginia. There are a couple others where family law attorneys or attorneys in general are the ones that are blocking this legislation from getting through. In a lot of cases, it's not Democrat, Republican. In a lot of cases, it is actually just one individual, a lot of times an attorney, that is maybe chairing a committee or is very influential, that is going to block this legislation. So I had a conversation with an individual who is leading the charge in one of the states, and one of his concerns was, hey, I don't know enough about the facts, I don't know enough about the statistics, I don't know enough about the details of the outcomes in equal and shared parenting, and I pointed in the direction of some reading, of some literature that he can gain a grasp of. But as champions for this change, we need to make sure that we're educated, and then we can educate other people in what I would call a mature adult way, where it's not bickering back and forth and arguing. It's able to lay out a set of facts, able to lay out a set of outcomes, be able to talk on the positive benefits that have occurred in Kentucky, be able to talk about some of the major research that's been done that shows that kids benefit from relatively equal time with both parents, and being able to communicate that to not just our neighbors, friends, families, but hopefully when you're given that opportunity to be able to communicate that effectively along with your story to legislators. So that's been my experience so far. I think that it's, although shocking, and I think a couple of individuals are very misguided in their thoughts and in what they're pushing and peddling. I mean, one of them had a $500,000 grant that was riding on her getting that outcome. But in general, there's a lot of individuals that are members of the bar that are open to it. We just need to be able to have the conversations with them about the facts of the issue.